Hi everyone, my name is Michael, and I would like to welcome you to Second Sunday Family Art Making, presented by the Cantor Art Center and the Anderson Collection at Stanford University. We're so excited to have you join us for today's art making activity. So while we wait for people to enter the room, you can gather your supplies for the art making activity. This activity can be done in a variety of ways depending on materials you have on hand. If you have other supplies, please feel free to use them. We will give instructions for several different ways to do the activity, but yeah, if you have any other supplies, we can do the activity several different ways. In this 30-minute program, we will be taking you through the art making process. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Maggie, who is the Cantor Curator of New Media and the lead curator of the upcoming exhibition, When Home Won't Let You Stay.
3 of Aliza Nisenbaum's paintings will be included in a cool new show that we're going to present in the new year called When Home Won't Let You Stay. The show is about migration, which means movement from one place to another. The show includes art by artists from over a dozen countries all over the world. Some of the art they make tells their own stories of moving from one place to another, and some of it is thinking about what their old homes were like and how they feel in their new homes. It can be a hard choice deciding to leave and go to a new place, but most of us have moved at least once in our lives, and if we haven't, our parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents did. Think about it. Have you always lived in the same apartment or house? Have you always lived in the same town, the same state? What about the same country? Ask the adults in your life, have they always lived in the same place? If not, where did they live before? Aliza Nisenbaum's paintings that are going in the show are portraits of a family, Veronica and Gustavo and their daughter Marissa. The parents used to live in Mexico and their daughter was born in New York. Mexico is where Talavera tiles are from, so I bet the tiles in their home that we can see in the paintings help remind them of where the family came from. Are there things in your house that came from or remind you of places you or your family lived before? How do those things make you feel? I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the new show, When Home Won't Let You Stay, and thinking about home and movement in your own life. I can't wait to see you at the show in person when we reopen and you can visit the museum safely to see it. In the meantime, enjoy making your own art.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diane, and I love making art and learning about art. This is one of the paintings that inspired our Second Sunday activity. Aliza Nisenbaum is the artist, and she titled the family portrait, La Talavera, Sunday Morning, New York Times. It was finished in 2016 and made with oil paint on linen. Look at the colorful wall in this painting. Aliza Nisenbaum used the tiles as patterns to activate the space in the painting. These colorful squares are called Talavera tiles, which are a traditional art in Mexican culture. Look at the bright mixture of patterns and colors. Here is another family portrait showing Talavera tiles. Aliza Nisenbaum calls this painting Las Talaveritas. Also, on the right, we see a picture of the artist with her artwork on the wall behind her. Now let's meet the Second Sunday crew. Curator Maggie, student guides Melissa and Marco, Nick, who works at the Anderson Collection, and educator Aubrey. They all have had fun doing this activity and are with us today to answer your questions and to talk about the art making process. While you are making your squares, let's find out how Talavera artwork is created. You can begin your tile by drawing a square. Most Talavera tiles are square. Draw a design, add some colors. Now let's look at the makers.
From this comes this, traditionally made Talavera pottery, which UNESCO's just declared an intangible cultural heritage. It starts with the clay. In Puebla, in central Mexico, they believe only the local variety can be used for true Talavera. From then on, it's almost exclusively handmade, an elaborate process which has survived 500 years. Salvador joined the long line of Talavera potters putting their hand to the wheel 27 years ago.
I saw how just from a lump of clay you could make art. That captured my attention, that the masters here made art from nothing.
The intricate patterns which make Talavera unique are hand-painted in workshop Casa Uriarte, which opened its doors 200 years ago. There are only 6 permitted colours. This cobalt blues come all the way from Africa.
No es cualquier material, son materiales especiales.
We don't just use any materials, they are very special. And we can take 3 months to finish a piece, and that makes it unique.
And this is the end product. The UNESCO designation covering Talavera production in Puebla also applies to the neighbouring state of Tlaxcala and Talavera de la Reina in Spain. But for many, Puebla is a heartland. When you come to Puebla, you see Talavera all over the place, in museums, in churches, and in colonial houses. They say here that it's the place that produces the most traditional Talavera in the world.
For our activity, instead of clay, we will make our tiles with paper and other materials that are easy to find. Here is a colorful example of the tiles drawn on paper that Nick made. All the colors and different shapes create a vibrant mixture of patterns that excite our eyes. Marco made this Talavera tile example using graph paper and colored pencils. A group of 2 to 4 tiles together makes the beginning of a bigger pattern. Melissa made this blue and white tile design. This freehand drawing style also reminds me of hand-painted blue and white Talavera tiles. Look at the way the tiles meet and create a whole new pattern. If you put together 4 more tiles with the same design, you will see a new and surprising pattern appear. Arrange your tiles edge to edge in a grid pattern. Experiment by turning the tiles around. Maggie created this paw print pattern by coloring the area around the paw shape. Talavera tiles use 6 colors traditionally. Do you see the beginning of a pattern? Do you wonder how artists get their ideas? Pass it on. Ask your friends and family members to design a tile. Put all your tiles together. Decorate a wall in your home, or maybe a refrigerator. Maggie got an idea that helped her choose colors for the tiles she made. She designed each tile to represent a member of her family. Can you guess which tile represents Maggie? This is a fun way to plan your art making. Making with your family is also a good way to learn new things about each other. Keep on making. One could say the tiles are like families. Each tile has an individual design, and when you bring the tiles together, they connect and create a bigger, beautiful pattern. One of the best parts of making art is sharing it with other people and hearing how your art inspires their ideas. So now let's watch and listen as our educators do this activity for the very first time.
Hi, this is Nick, and I'm going to walk through the activity sheet today. I'm going to start by adding pattern to the first pattern sheet. As you can see, there are 4 squares, and each one has a different pattern. And then I'm going to add color. The first one to me looks like a cell, so I'm using red, green, and blue for my colors. What would I do for the next one? I like purple, so I'm gonna use purple. Look at that. And the opposite of purple is yellow. That will make it pop. And the next one looks like peacock feathers to me, so I'm coloring it green, blue, and yellow. And of course the background's purple, because I like purple. The last one is going to have all the colors, because they're all beautiful in each individual way. Look at that, mixing all the colors together, making it like a rainbow. Ta-da! You will also have a sheet with empty squares to put in the patterns you want. The first square I drew like a map, as if it was topographical. The next square I drew poppies, like California poppies, which are a wildflower, and they tend to be orange. The third square is very geometric, and as you can see, I can make a lot of tiny triangles. The last one is my dog, 'cause I love my dog. Look at that. And then what? We're gonna cut them all out. Why is that? So we can put them all together like a happy family. Look at that.
Hi everyone! I had so much fun creating my Talavera tiles, and I learned a lot about making repeating patterns. My tiles celebrate the women in my family. I used patterns that remind me of my grandmothers, my mom, and me. This green polka dot pattern is from a silk scarf that used to belong to my grandma Edith. Next, I created a pattern with pink flowers for my grandma Jane, because pink was her favorite color. The paisley, which is this pattern with the teardrop shapes, represents my mom because she likes to wear bright, colorful patterns. The fourth pattern is for me. It's paw prints because I love animals and I have 2 cats. I tried to make each of my tiles really unique, but I also wanted them to fit together. I used the polka dot circle as the basis for all my other shapes, and I found that this tape dispenser is an easy way to get a neat circle. I had fun deciding which ways my pattern should go to give them movement, up and down, like the paw prints, or diagonal, like the paisley. I also had fun figuring out how the patterns could meet at the corners and at the edges, but that was also really challenging. Remember, if you want your pattern to match up across tiles, any shape cut in half by the edge, like this, has to have another half on the edge of the next tile. I think next time I make Talavera tiles, I'll cut out the tiles first and work on 2 or even 4 at a time so I can line them up and draw the shapes on the corners or edges in one go. Have fun creating your tiles. Meow.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying Second Sunday. I wanted to show you some of the Talavera tile designs that I made. At first I wanted to kind of copy exactly what the examples were, but then I decided to make some designs of my own so I could add to all that there already are. So this was my first one, and this would just be one tile, but together I put another tile. So here it starts to look pretty different than just one alone. And if you put 4 tiles right next to each other, that looks pretty funky. I think with the colors I have, the center kind of reminds me of like a pan frying 4 eggs and maybe some peas. But then these make me think of a star or the blue sky at night. So yeah, this was really fun to make. And I didn't have a printer at home, so I decided to just use graph paper, and for those I used some oil pastels, but crayons or colored pencils work really well too. This was my second one, which I made with help of my cousin. He was like, well, you had a lot of circles there, make something flowier. So this is what I came up with. That would be 2 tiles. And there's the 4. So this one's pretty different from the last one. Just 2 colors, just the white that's already the paper and some blue. But I think it looks really good. And then some others that I'll show them off in the order that I made them. So this was the first one I had. I wanted something simpler, and from the examples, it made me think of a flower. A lot of them had like flower shapes, so I made something like that. So I had like the bigger petals are these blue ones, and then the smaller yellow petals. Then I made this one, which is very different from the flower. There's a lot more sharper edges, and that's what I wanted to try, because a lot of the tiles had a lot of curves, a lot of flow, and I wanted to try something different from that. So this is the one I came up with. I also saw that there were some birds, and so I saw, hey, I'll try make an animal, maybe not just designs. And so I had the sea turtle, which was pretty fun to make. And then these are all single tiles. And if you see here, this is just one tile, but this is 9 of those tiles put together. So from just the one to all 9, or even more of them, if you could keep expanding this, it looks pretty different. So if you can put all of them together, they start looking really cool. So these are all the tiles I came up with. And these were super fun to make. I hope you guys are enjoying Second Sunday. And let's see what you come up with.
Hi everyone, my name's Melissa. I'm really excited to show you all how I made my Talavera tiles. I decided to use some printer paper, scissors, and markers to make my tiles. I love the color combination of white and deep blue, so I ended up using the blue marker. I decided to draw a flower in the middle with some arches and dots and lines around the edges. As I made more and more tiles, I realized I could trace the pattern from the first tile I made to keep the placement of the flower more consistent. But I freestyled the arches and lines around the edges, so as you can see, not all of them matched up perfectly. When I try this activity again, I'll try to be a little more consistent. Overall, I was really happy with how the tiles turned out. You can see that the 4 corners come together to make another little flower-looking shape. And since the flowers in the middle are pointing different ways, when I put them together, they made their own unique pattern too.
Artists use some special tricks to make their work interesting. In this activity, pattern, shape, and color are important elements. Principles of design are tools for understanding the process of art making. Pattern is a shape and color represented in the artwork. Pattern creates a feeling of organized movement through repetition. Pattern, repetition creates rhythm. Pattern plus unity equal the feeling of harmony among all parts of the artwork and gives a sense of completeness. Think about all the patterns that you see every day. Now let's hear from the artist herself and find out what inspires her to make art.
My name's Aliza Nisenbaum, and I'm a painter. My paintings are always painted from life. It's a very vulnerable experience in some ways, having somebody sit for you. Each person is like a world of experience that comes to me when I spend time with them. The stories they tell me are amazing. I think the paintings, even though you don't get the full background story of each one of the sitters I work with, might provide a sense of like the deeper, wider humanity of each one of the subjects I'm depicting. I got really interested about 5 years ago in Tania Bruguera's project, Immigrant Movement International, so I went to visit her in Queens. She's an artist that brings together art that has actual repercussions in the world. And I was really interested in how it can engage in this kind of social practice modality of working and go and collaborate with a particular community or take place in a kind of social interaction. I asked each one of the women in that program if they would sit for me and if I could paint them from life, and then it extended into their families. So I ended up painting many generations of families and painting them from life. It's almost like entering into a therapeutic space or something where they really disclose a lot of stories or the ways in which very intimate conversations come about, and you also have to give a lot of yourself. And then the artwork comes out as a kind of document or as the last part of that social interaction that you have with a particular community. We're used to thinking of documentary practices as photography, but I was really interested in the kind of space that you enter into with painting, which is like a slowing down of time. The painting that I have here is of Veronica, who I've been painting for the past 5 years and who I met through Immigrant Movement International. I've gone to Veronica's house many times, and this particular heading of Children's Rights Bill was in their home when I was painting them, and with the crafts, with the pillows that her sister makes. So I painted Veronica thinking about how the public realm enters the private realm. The painting that went to Norwich is called Susan, Artie, Kirthana, and Princess, Sunday in Brooklyn. Susan and Artie are really engaged with social justice and racial justice issues. They live these concerns every day. The backgrounds are in some ways kind of a fleshing out of the personality or the interactions I have with the sitters. I loved how decorative their house was. They had textiles from all over the world. I decided to paint them with their surroundings in their living room. I think Valeria Napoleon's project of bringing work by women to museums outside of London, especially where there might not be as much contemporary art, is a really amazing project, because it means a lot when you're like a young girl and you see yourself or somebody like you depicted in a painting. Representation can be very inspiring to anyone that goes to these museums.
Hi everyone, while you're making, let's take a closer look at our inspiration work. What do we see here? It looks like we're definitely in a house. We can see a plant on the bottom left side, and there may be a window on the right side. To me, it also looks as though we are looking at a family. The older woman on the left side looks like she may be the mother of the two girls. They look pretty relaxed, but perhaps a little bored, right? That could be because Aliza Nisenbaum, the artist, is asking them to sit still while she paints them. She visited with this family at this house many times. She painted while they sat for hours and hours. Can you imagine sitting in the same spot for hours with nothing to play or do except talk with the artist? No wonder the girl in the blue shirt is looking at the floor and the other girl in the ripped jeans is sitting upside down. They were probably tired by the whole portrait painting process. But because they did sit still for hours, we were allowed to also visit their lives at home for a bit. We can see that they are religious, given the Mary tapestry pictured at the top of the painting, and we get to look at the Talavera tiles painted behind them. Aren't the tiles so cool? When we look at each tile separately, they all seem pretty different from one another, right? But somehow there is a unity between all of them. Even though the tiles have different patterns, the wall still feels complete. When I look at these tiles, I'm reminded of my family. I have my parents and my 3 sisters. When a stranger looks at us, it probably doesn't seem like we belong together, much like these mismatched tiles. We have different interests, we like different foods, and we're quick to voice our different opinions. But for some reason, despite all of these differences, we're a unit and we love each other dearly. Does this sound like your family to you? Thank you for joining me for the second Sunday Storytime. We can't wait to hear what you think about this artwork and how your own art making process is going during the Q&A session.
Now we will transition to our Q&A portion of our program. You can tell us what you learned during the activity, your favorite part. If you're currently still doing the project, are you having any trouble or any questions about anything? Or if you're a speedy art maker, if you could do this project again, what would you do differently?
So we have a question from Aubrey. And her question is, how did you decide what colors to use for your tiles? For me, I picked the colors that I like. So for me, it was purple. And I would sometimes choose to use it as a background color or a foreground color, or sometimes as an accent color.
I picked colors based on what my family members liked, like pink is my grandma Jane's favorite color, but I also found I started with the green and white pattern, and then I did the pink pattern, and then I wanted to do the paw print pattern and make sure that the paw prints stayed white so that they matched up with the white circles in the green pattern. By the time I got to my mom's paisley pattern, I thought I need to put all the colors in here so that it ties all 4 tiles together.
And it looks like we have another question. What do the tiles feel like? Well, I've worked in ceramics before, and I can imagine that the back of the tiles that are empty of the design, that are just the plain clay, are going to be a little rough, a little like a fine sandpaper. But then the top with all the colors that are made from a glaze are going to be very smooth like glass. Ooh, and we have another question. What do you do if you are not very good at art making or being creative? How do you get enough confidence just to start?
If it's difficult to start, you can always start with a pencil and just make any lines that you think would work. And then if you don't like them, you can decide to erase them. But you can start with a pencil, make some circles, make some shapes, anything that comes to mind. And then if you end up not liking it, you can always erase it and try something else.
I just want to say that making art is not always about being good at it. Everybody has something that they want to say with their art, either remembering a family member like we did today with our tiles, or maybe reflecting on something that you learned in school or drawing your pet. There are all sorts of things that make us want to make art. So your art doesn't have to be good. There's also a lot of ways that art can be good. It can be interesting. It doesn't have to be conventionally pretty. So if you don't think you're good or creative, just start, because you're going to make something amazing anyway.
That was awesome, Maggie. Thank you. I just wanted to say I have some real tiles here. If you can see that this side of the tile is smooth and shiny, I'm going to move it around so that the light hits it. And then you turn the tile over, and it's the clay itself is back here. This is a red clay, but the one we saw in the movie was a black clay. So maybe these aren't real Talavera tiles, but this is smooth and shiny on one side and rough and clay like on the other side, just like Nick described.
So we have another question. Are Talavera tiles always square? Let's see. I would say the tiles are, but Talavera can be a bowl or a glass or any other kind of ceramic object you can make. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tile, but if you're gonna make Talavera tiles specifically, they do tend to be square. One more question. Maggie, would you want to honor different family members next time you did it?
Yes. I think that if I were doing more tiles, I would just keep doing more and more family members. And when I was making my tiles, I almost felt bad that I wasn't making one for my dad, because like my mom and my grandma, he's been very important in my life. And so I think next time maybe I would do a set for my dad and for my grandpas. Then there are aunts and uncles, and then maybe friends. There are a lot of people in my life that I love that I would love to work into artwork.
Thanks for sharing. All right. I guess that is all the time we have for today. And you can tag us on Instagram at Cantor Arts or at Anderson Collection Stanford, Pound Second Sunday.
Thank you so much for participating, and we really hope you had a fun day. So until next time, we'll see you on the original Second Sunday.